everyone, welcome to GrayMatter tutorials, and today I'd like to talk to you about serialization in Unity. Before we get started, I'd like to explain the scenery and why it's different than usual. So, yes, that is Star Wars in the background. I am also wearing Star Wars PJs, which I doubt you'll see. Likewise, other things you won't see is the Star Wars bed, the Star Wars figurines, and then we also have DC and Marvel and stuff like that. This is my guest bedroom slash upstairs man cave kind of thing, because we don't always have guests. Either way, so the reason it's different is because my desk is cluttered, so my laptop is on the couch looking up at me at an angle, and that's why you see most of the wall. Just a little bit above that is the ceiling. So I apologize for that. Hopefully it's not too distracting. But with that being said, let's go ahead and continue with serialization. So serialization in Unity can be simple or it can be complex. In one hand, simplicity in serialization comes with something like Flappy Bird, where all you're saving is a single integer, and you can use player prefs for that. Player prefs in Unity, it's a simple way to save things, but it's not the right way to save things. First off, all the data is going to be extremely, readable to the human eye. But same thing with JSON, which I'm going to actually make an argument for later to use JSON, but we'll see which side you're on. Either way, so player prefs can be used for something like Flappy Bird, where you're saving out a single integer without too much custom code, custom classes, included plugins, anything like that. It's built right into Unity, so you might as well use it. However, when you get to bigger projects, like a role-playing game, player prefs is not going to cut it, so don't even try it. I mean, yeah, you might get it to work. For instance, saving a list, you would save the count, and then you would, I don't even know, do something. You would have to save the data in a really weird way. But saving it that way is probably going to be a lot like saving it with JSON, so you might as well just use JSON, because JSON's built into Unity now too with the JSON utility, which will have 3 methods, I think. One's to JSON, and then there's to JSON with a indentation formatter thing, and then from JSON, which will read through all of the JSON and then convert it to an object. So there are some other options built into Unity now, such as JSON. I'm not going to argue for the JSON utility. Although if you're creating a game that's just a little bit more complex than Flappy Bird, I would say use it. It's really nice, but on the more complex side, you'll be saving things like player rotation, player position, player health, player stats, player everything player. Not only player, but all the enemies around you and stuff like that. Where you're at in the like, are you in this location or at this location? Which scene were you just in? I mean, there's a whole bunch of different things that you need to actually save when you get to the bigger games. And there's several ways people go about doing it. There is the let's save all the data like Skyrim and save every single character in this large maps position and stuff like that. And I'm sure they probably do it within only a short distance. I wouldn't imagine that they would go all the way from one side of the map to the other and save everything. But you could, theoretically. I don't know if you'd have enough memory to do that, but theoretically you could. Or there's people that do the checkpoint thing, where you go to a checkpoint, they only care about your information. Sometimes they'll even skip out on your rotation and stuff, so you'll save it looking at the checkpoint. Say it's a post, you'll be looking at the post in the ground and you're staring at it, and you'll save it off that way. But then when they load you up, they'll turn you around, and now you're facing 180 degrees away from the post, because that's the way that the post spawn point was set up, and they'll just spawn you there. That's an efficient way to save things too, because it looks like you were, just sitting there for a while, and you moved, and then all the enemies had time to move, but you didn't get killed, kind of thing. Either way you go about saving data, it just depends on how much data you have to work with, what platform you're going to, and stuff like that. Player preferences in those bigger games shouldn't be used for the saving of the game data, but they can be saved for literally player preferences. that would be stuff like the game volume. So with the other example, they have like a class called game state where they go through and put all of this data on what they want to save into the single class, serialize that class out, deserialize it, and then put all that data back into the real world, spawning new objects, stuff like that. But you don't want to be like, oh, well, let's also throw the volume in the game state. Why? So something like volume and other player preferences, such as the brightness of the screen and the little rect on where you want the UI to be drawn, can all be saved into player preferences. Should be saved into player preferences as opposed to the game state class. It just seems weird to save it in the game state class. Instead of creating a player preference state class, just use the built-in player preferences. It's going to be a readable file, but who cares if they go in there and change it? They can change it when they get into the menu. It's not like it's, you had 10 coins and now you have 10,000. It's not like that. So I wouldn't say that you need any extra security besides player preferences. So that would be an instance to use player preferences in a bigger game, but for those bigger games, you need to do something else. Binary formatter, for example. The issue comes when you have a binary formatter and you're trying to serialize more complex data. So let's look at a role-playing game, like one of the larger ones we were talking about, where you have item data. Then you also have armor data, weapon data, and consumable data that inherit from that item data. Armor has defense, weapon has damage, consumable has attributes that it modifies of yours, or something like that. In that instance, you're going to want to save, or you're going to have a hard time saving that if it's okay, so say the armor data is in a collection of item data. So a list of items, armor data can go into it, weapon data can go into it, and consumable data can go into it because of polymorphism. But then serializing that, binary formatter will serialize that all out as item data because it has a really hard time with deserializing things and there being extra fields or not enough fields, and it'll throw error after error and saying it can't do it. So whatever the class is, it's going to save it out so we can have an easy time bringing it back in when it deserializes it. JSON, and I'm new to JSON. I don't use JSON often, but I'm pretty sure JSON, on the other hand, will say, okay, well, this object.getType is of armor data, not item data, so we're going to save it out as armor data, go through all the fields of armor data, save it all out. And then weapon data, the same thing, and then consumable data, the same thing. And then when it loads it back in, it's like, oh, was that armor data, weapon data, or consumable data? Guess we'll only be able to use it as item data. So then it casts everything as item data, or it creates a new instance of item data and then applies all of the properties to it. And then whatever it doesn't use, gone. It doesn't use them. It just throws them away. So that might not work for you. Actually, it won't work for you if inheritance is a big problem for you. But I stumbled upon something, a jewel in my opinion, called JSON.NET. It is JSON built around the .NET framework, or the JSON framework built around .NET. I don't remember which one it was. It was one of them, though. Either way, this will allows you to have a class called JSON Converter, which allows you to customly create a write and read JSON method for how you want to serialize that data and deserialize that data. So for instance, when it comes to serializing with this inheritance problem, there's not much of an issue, so you don't have to create a writer. And there's a can-write property that you set to false. You don't need to worry about writing. However, with reading, it's important to focus on the reading. When you go into the reading part of it, you want to look to see if the properties line up with this type. Say that there's defense. Oh, well, there's defense, then we'll go ahead and create it as an armor type, and then you would return that armor type and then serialize those deserialize those properties into the new armor, as opposed to casting it to a new item type. So it's a nice way to go about it. We'll talk about it in this series. I just wanted to explain to you that this is something that .NET allows you, or JSON.NET allows you to do. The other things that I wanted to talk about can really wait. They'll wait until the next video. Well, not the next video. In this video, we're going to go into Unity now. We're just going to talk about the file structure, and then in the next video, we'll start with programming. Feel free to skip it if you want to just check it out in the next video. Alright, so I know that this has already been a really long video, but I want to go ahead and explain this folder structure real quick. So you have the GrayMatter folder, the scripts folder, and data folder. This is just how we set up our namespace. So any class that I put inside this data folder will be GrayMatter.data as far as the namespace goes. Then I have a streaming assets folder. This is where I will be saving and loading my JSON file. However, if you're going to be saving and loading runtime data, I recommend application.persistentDataPath. It's a writable location. Streaming assets isn't writable, I think, for anything. But yeah, I would look at application.persistentDataPath for saving and loading files for runtime game save location. This is just where I would put database stuff. So then plugins is going to have the JSON.net folder already in it. It's actually the entire asset, which you can get from the asset store. This right here, JSON.net for Unity, is what I recommend. Then you also have this JSON.net converters. This will show you how to do examples of custom converters. It's worth looking at, but it also has some for already having object types, such as vector 3s and vector 2s, and how to save those. Oh, and I also wanted to show you their webpage, which is newtonsoft.com/JSON. And this is where you can get JSON.net as well. This will provide source code and stuff like that. Also, I wanted to show you guys my Facebook page so you guys know that I actually have one. Feel free to check it out. It's at GrayMatter Tutorials. For Twitter, if you guys want to go to that. Then I think it's also for Facebook as well. I don't really know. I just get on them. But yeah, I do have it, and I do post regularly. Except for this, you know, December 29th to 1 hour ago. That was quite a bit of time, seeing as it's the 13th. But other than that, it's been going well. So, hope you guys like this video, and go ahead and join me in the next one so we can start programming.